Hello and welcome to A Salute to Arrogance. This is the Hapa Bro-Cast. I'm your host, Matt Hart.
And I'm Trevor Hart.
And today we're here to talk about the upcoming sequel to one of our favorite movies of all time, Top Gun. Trevor, this movie is so near and dear to our hearts.
Indeed.
I believe most people in our age range, mid-20s to 30s, I probably feel similar. It was a huge film at the time, but for us, it was a step further because you have to understand, the soundtrack was all our mom worked out to.
Yeah, every evening, Mom would be in the basement on her rowing machine, blasting the Top Gun soundtrack on her cassette tape. I don't know if you ever did it, but I remember stealing it from her a couple times.
Oh, of course, it's one of the greatest movie soundtracks ever compiled. I still listen to it to this day. In fact, it's probably one of only 3 albums I listen to be totally honest. That's how bad my taste in music is, but also, it speaks volumes to how much I care about this film. Because for me, I think the biggest thing was, it was like an extension of Star Wars. My favorite scenes in Star Wars were the X-Wing combat scenes. And to see basically the real life equivalent of that on film, that just blew me away as a kid. And of course, I dreamed of being a fighter pilot like so many other people do, till I realized that my vision sucked and I hated roller coasters. So it's probably not the best candidate. But I can't say enough about the original film. I love that it's one of the best date movies of all time, where it's got the sappy love story, the music video components. Essentially, it's the closest thing to Rocky IV that's not Rocky IV. Yeah. It has the perfect pacing. It has the great bromance between Goose and Maverick. You have great rivalry with Iceman. You have the father issues. You have the great nemesis. And, there's just so many different aspects to it that I love. And now hearing word that they're making a sequel, or at least they're leaking information to that effect. Yeah. I'm over the moon. I don't know about how you receive that, but
my initial gut reaction is unfortunately negative, because in my mind, Top Gun is it's a product of its time. It's a cultural milestone, but everything about all the components that make Top Gun are typified by 1980s filmmaking, the music video quality to the editing, the everybody looks like a fashion model, the soundtrack. God, I just think of everything that they do now, all the trends we have running right now, and it just does not seem to add up to something that could pay proper homage to Top Gun.
See, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we all had that same response when we saw the latest Point Break when that came out, and how it took a good idea and just made it into a miserable, campy action flick for the modern era. The only difference, though, is this one has Tom Cruise attached to it. And say what you want about his crazy, personal life, the man makes good movies. Still to this day. If they're not good, they're entertaining. And when it comes to a movie like Top Gun, that's what you're really looking for first and foremost, is entertainment over anything.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like I like Tom Cruise. His personal life is his personal life. Honestly, though, most movies I see him in, I enjoy. A lot of people make the argument that most movies he's in aren't good because he's in them. I guess I would agree with that.
I would disagree entirely, because I feel like he has a certain charisma about him that it's like he believes so much in himself to the point where it wins you over, because he's just so ridiculously over the top in every single movie he's in.
Well, I'm with you there, and I see it in a lot of his movies, especially in the past 4 or 5 years. It's like Jack Reacher to me is a really good example of that, where it's almost laughable, where his involvement in the film as a producer, not as a star, but as a producer, is evident in the extreme, where every female character in Jack Reacher has to look him up and down and go, "Oh my God, I need that inside me." And
Yeah, but he also took a character who's supposed to be 6'5", and he's probably 5'6", and he still made it fun.
I actually kind of like Jack Reacher. It's kind of a throwback action film. It's a little too much of a throwback action film, and the editing is a little drab, and the car chase is a little plain. But I just think it's funny that, it's true. The character in the novels is supposed to be over 6 foot, and I think blonde too. But someone with the ego of Tom Cruise can look at a script like that and say, no, hell no, I'll have people react to me exactly the same, even though my physical description doesn't match at all, and my silhouette doesn't match at all, but, whatever, I'm Tom Cruise.
But that's where I enjoy him, because, he can go through from doing something so unbelievable like Jack Reacher and then follow it up with a movie like Live, Die, Repeat, where essentially part of the fun of it is watching Tom Cruise get blown away. And I think, he'd be an idiot not to realize that part of the fun of that movie was you got to watch him be killed over and over and over again. And, if you dislike him, if you like him, either way, it's comical. And, that movie had some fun sci-fi elements to it, too.
No, Ed, I would agree with you on that. I think the argument against him is mostly just the fact that he hasn't really been an actor as of late. He's been more just like Tom Cruise featured in. A lot of actors seem to go through phases like that where they bank more on their marketability as a person or a public personality rather than as a transformative actor or something.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The only issue with that I have, I guess, is just that I feel like you could apply that to most actors in this era, just because there's so many more available, it seems, for feature films. Like, you're seeing much more ensemble cast, much more instances where a character or a person is cast to convey the personality this actor conveys in their personal life a lot of the time into a fictional character on screen. But that's a rant for another time.
Yeah,
really, what we're here to talk about is Top Gun 2. And I guess I see certain ways that you can make this film and actually pay homage to the original. And that's what I really hope they do with this. That's the trend going on right now. They like to bring up the nostalgic stuff. That's Absolutely. What all the millennial kids want to see, myself included in a way. But you have to pay proper homage. And we were firing back and forth the other day over ways that we could actually do that. And I guess the first way I do is with the soundtrack. Like, I really, really hope that they just do covers of the original soundtrack, because I thought that soundtrack was so perfect and over the top and great. And, I feel like it's timeless in that sense, that it's just, most people remember at least, a few songs off of it. Yeah. And I'd love to see, some modern bands covering some of the tunes. I know a few of them have already. And that would be a real nice way to, keep the feeling of the original without getting it too drab and too realistic like most movies are these days, especially regarding military actions and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I think that's the only really sensible route you could take. Because, in my mind, it's like if you were to release a Top Gun sequel or prequel or remake or what have you, the soundtrack would require some special attention, because ultimately I think that is something that a lot of people have held on to from the original. So if you were to make like Top Gun 2 and have it have just a nondescript, like James Newton Howard or Hans Zimmer score that's just like a thumping electronic, like typical modern action movie score, I think that would rub people the wrong way. And what I don't want to happen, and what I could totally see happening, is the soundtrack being comprised of like electropop stuff that pays homage to the 80s as a decade as a whole, which seems to be in vogue these days. Like that thumping electronic sound is really popular right now. And I would hate to see like a Justin Bieber or a Taylor Swift end up on the soundtrack doing something off of one of their albums.
Yeah, I could just picture it now, a Nicki Minaj track while they have the modern equivalent of the volleyball sequence playing out.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I really hope that they do something like that. Maybe not the entire soundtrack, but it would be nice at the very least to, you have to have Highway to the Danger Zone. You have to have, some great guitar virtuoso perform the anthem. The other stuff like that. I still think there are some great tracks there. Take My Breath Away. feel like you can find some Glee artist or whatever to cover that.
No, they'll definitely have, the romance song. Like, it may not be that, but they'll have an equivalent to that. And I mean, to me, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but I would like to see them pay the proper respect to that aspect of the film, like they did in the original. Because I mean, "Take My Breath Away" was used several times in the movie, to the point that it's part of the soundtrack, like the original soundtrack, not just like it's part of the score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's kind of a theme for I think it was Charlie, the female lead.
Yeah, the instructor.
Yeah.
And, when you bring that up, that's the other compelling part, I think, about the thought of a Top Gun sequel, is that there's so many different routes you can take. And that's what makes it really enjoyable to approach it, because you don't have to just do the cookie cutter sequel where it's just, Maverick's a Top Gun instructor, and lo and behold, a new challenge awaits him, and apparently this one they're going to focus on drones versus modern combat pilots, which I actually think is a nice wrinkle. But you could also take it a different stretch. I mean, Maverick, for his personality and for his behavior in the first film, like, you could easily see him be some outcast airline pilot. You could easily see him be a drunk. You could easily see him be just some renegade mechanic out in the desert. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could portray Maverick, in, what is it, almost 20 years since? And, I think it's a safe bet to say that his relationship with Charlie probably didn't pan out.
I mean, his freewheeling style settling didn't really seem like part of the blueprint for him.
I mean, call it, maybe it's just me, but if you follow a girl into the bathroom the first night you meet her, the women's room on top of that, I don't think that you have a future there, and that's probably not a story you're going to be telling your kids when they grow up. But beyond that, I mean, there's other wrinkles too. You have the Val Kilmer aspect. He could easily replace Tom Skerritt's character as, being the senior instructor at the Top Gun Academy. You could easily have Goose's son involved in some manner. I prefer that they don't, but it's a potential wrinkle. I mean, that's the thing. There's a number of different options you're left with, as opposed to the very straightforward, like, oh, Maverick's still the shit, everything's great, oh, here come the drones, But if they go that route too, I mean, it could be fun too, because then you add cyber terrorism to it, because inevitably, those drones are going to get hacked. It's the only...
Oh, God, no. I mean, those terrorists, they can't build their own drones. They got to steal America's drones.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like...
They're not smart enough to make drones.
Well, they don't have the resources, and that's the unfortunate truth.
They're not smart enough. They can't do it.
I mean, the reality is, like, when there's no enemies really blatantly for America to wave the flag around, like in the first one, it was so just generalized. You could just say, like, oh, it's over the Indian Ocean. That could be any number of different countries, but they're wearing black helmets, so just know they're the bad guys. Yeah. And you could do that because it was the 80s, we were always under threat of some, unknown source. It was, we were the G.I. Joe generation. But now... things are a little different, and that's where you do kind of have to keep it in your own backyard, and more than likely there will be cyber terrorism components, because you do have to have an excuse for Maverick to blow shit up, and, look, that's some of the funnest scenes in Top Gun, or Maverick locking up onto something and blowing it up at the end.
That's actually one thing that, when I think about it, I think that is going to be something that'll rear its ugly head. That'll be a distinct difference. I could totally see them finding a way to shoehorn in an antagonist, like actually having someone to shoot, like actually having a face and a personality that is separate from the rest of the cast and is made clear as the villain. Because, as you said, that's not what we have right now, and that's what we crave. Is that it's so much easier to go about your life. You know what you're fighting.
Yeah, see, I thought about that too, and personally, like, I think that would be interesting if they took that in a different way. Like, you could potentially do a villain, but not your traditional type of villain, just more an adversary. Okay. Very similar to what you did with Iceman in the first one, where it's a competition. Your head's up, one-on-one. And honestly, like, I think it would be kind of neat if they kind of did it more in a playful manner. Like, you have a drone pilot and you have him just kind of be some dipshit. When we were kicking back ideas, like the first one that kind of came to mind was somebody like Ed Helms, who's kind of got the goofy, wants to be the Maverick, but in reality, he's a drone pilot. He's a guy who sits on a console.
Yeah.
And I think you could have some funny, back and forths where, whereas Maverick was so alpha male, so driven by that, and his father issues and just, had to be the best at everything, had to always push the boundaries. And it would be really interesting to see, how this other guy who's more of the nerd but gets all the acclaim, on a similar, he's held to the same respects, even though this guy, is awkward in public. He doesn't, have the bravado to just go up and sing to some random strange woman at a bar. He's not going to beat you in a beach volleyball competition, let alone take his shirt off in public. I mean, I think that would be interesting, provided you don't take it too far and don't make him into a joke. I mean, I think you could actually portray it in a way, especially because that guy can act, and I could see him being the panicked expression when the cyber terrorists come in and hack the drone, and he's freaking out, can't figure out why he can't get this thing under control. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be one take I could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, that's if they really do go with the drone storyline, which I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, there's a lot of different routes you could take with that. It's a classic story. I mean, it's John Henry Irons versus the steam engine, and
of course, yeah.
And fuck, I don't know if any of you out there have seen Macross Plus, but they had 2 test pilots in that, and one was using one type of piloting system and one type of machine, and the other guy was testing a different model of airplane, and they had a personal rivalry. And Macross Plus is Top Gun but animated.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, if I recall, that pretty much that entire series was based on the Top Gun.
But really, it's what it comes down to is like 2 different types of approaches, 2 different personalities, 2 different technologies. And I do think it would be interesting if they... One thing they didn't do in the old Top Gun was really give a whole lot of depth to characters outside of Maverick and his little circle of people.
Sure.
Like you get to meet Goose's family, you get to meet Meg Ryan and the kid, and everybody loved Goose. Iceman liked Goose. Slider liked Goose.
Yeah, I mean...
They did a very good job of making Goose likable and then, snatching him away from us. But, Iceman didn't really get a personality. You get the feeling that he's an alright guy. It's more just Maverick is reacting to him poorly because they're too alike in some ways, and they're both bullheaded. But really, he didn't come across as a dimensioned person. I mean, Iceman was kind of a fitting name for him, but it would be interesting to see. I really like sports dramas, and in a lot of ways, Top Gun kind of is like a schoolyard sports drama.
Sure, of course.
And I think it would be interesting if you got 2 protagonists, basically. There's no bad person, because, it's sports. There's no bad guy. But in Top Gun, it was Maverick all the way. It would be nice to see the Maverick character, the hero protagonist, have someone who gets as much screen time as him, who you get to see as a dimensioned character.
See, I would agree to a level. The only concern I have with that is that seems to be in vogue these days, to kind of have the new generation, the new guy taking over. And I really personally would prefer to see the old guy win out in this one.
Well,
just because
I think Hollywood would too, because there's always the analog hero is very much it's held in very high regard. Look at every Liam Neeson movie made post mid 2000s. Just the old battle scarred hero who is outmoded in some ways, but still shows up to. And ends up having all the answers when the shit gets real.
Sure.
That's a heroic archetype that I really appreciate, too.
I see. I just would like to see, I guess, because I felt like I agree with everything you said about the first film, but I think that was intentionally done in a lot of those instances, because I think you were seeing these characters through Maverick's point of view. I mean, the whole movie, every character, for the most part, is there to support him in some capacity. Even Iceman, who's supposed to be, in a way, comes across like this huge dick, but in a way, he's really just kind of challenging Maverick to be like, you have all the talent in the world. Mm-hmm. It's just, he doesn't trust him because, he takes reckless, he's reckless. That's really what it boils down to. And so I would like to see the evolution of Maverick as a character. I want to see him older, where he has lost some things, where he is kind of put, up against the ropes, and now it's a matter of where he has to delve back into his old bag of tricks, because it's the only way he can hang. I think that the concept of him going up against drones could provide for some amazing footage and some amazing concepts from first person, and obviously the GoPro angles on a plane and in a drone in general.
Yeah.
But I think it would be neat to see him, have to like delve back into like, okay, I'm going to hit the brakes and he's going to fly right by me type thing. And I think that one of the things I guess that really made me love Top Gun 2 was, or the first one I should say, is that so much of it was focused on the dogfighting component of it. Like there was very little combat. Like the combat was necessary at the end just to kind of sate your appetite for it, because you can only see so many instances of guys locking on without actually pulling the trigger. But it was kind of neat where it really was like, it was less about actual violence and more just a focus on skill as a pilot. I mean, even the way Goose loses his life, it's he doesn't lose his life protecting the country, he loses his life doing drills. That happens, that's unfortunate, and that was a really terrible thing, but it's a wake-up call, because that's reality. Not everyone goes down in the blaze of glory like some Hollywood films. So I always thought that was kind of neat. Like you really got to see like how much goes into actually training these guys to become the best of the best out there. So hopefully they can find a way to show that in the modern age somehow.
Well, not to put things down a rocky avenue here, but why don't we talk about possible scenarios, like predictions for what could or should happen with the sequel. You mentioned earlier Goose's son, and that got my brain thinking about the current trend in Hollywood, and well, not so much current anymore, but there are a shocking number of chosen one narratives floating around out there when it comes to like $100 million plus Hollywood tentpole filmmaking. Like Amazing Spider-Man. Good fucking Lord, Amazing Spider-Man. Basically, the way the script for Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 works, Peter Parker was fated to be the Spider-Man. Like his everything gets traced back to his father. Like everything was set in motion long before he was conceived. Transformers. Sam Witwicky's great-great-grandfather met Megatron and got some shit sprayed on his glasses.
God, I forgot
Ninja
about that.
Turtles. Like the newest Ninja Turtles. Holy shit. But I can't help but think that shit worked. All those movies made a crap load of money. And Goose has a son. So in my mind, I'm piecing together this scenario where Goose's son, raised by Meg Ryan, who will probably be recast in the film. I mean, she'll probably show up because I'm guessing her asking price is down these days.
Fair enough.
So Goose's son shows up to the Top Gun Academy, and he's got a chip on his shoulder because his daddy died because he thinks Maverick killed him. And Maverick is the new Jester or the new Viper. Either or. So, and then they have a pissing contest like the first Top Gun or like Officer and a Gentleman or something, and it's all about Goose's son reclaiming the title of Goose and becoming the best fighter pilot.
God, and that's exactly what I'm afraid of, because that was exactly what they tried to do in the last Die Hard movie, and it was so terrible. And that's really my fears, because it comes across like you're trying to start something fresh with a new actor, and it'll most likely be some like muscle-bound idiot, who's up and coming and trying to pretty much get the nod from Cruise to be like, yeah, you're the heir apparent.
Have fun.
That's fine, works for Creed. Brilliant concept there,
It did, yeah.
But when you're talking Top Gun, you shouldn't be thinking anything outside of, okay, we can do a sequel now because it's been X amount of years and, people still love this film, so why not? You shouldn't be thinking like we're going to turn this into a series and a future brand, because no, it doesn't work that way. The only reason I'm excited about this, honestly, is they took so long to actually do a sequel to it. The last time I heard them talking about a sequel was probably 10 years ago. They were talking about Jennifer Garner being the new up-and-coming pilot, and Tom Cruise being the instructor who takes her under his wing. They romance. She goes off into combat, gets shot down, then he has to pull the Iron Eagle move and come in and rescue her. And you pointed out that this was, in fact, the plot to
Stealth.
That dreadful, horrible movie with Jamie Foxx, Oscar-winning Jamie Foxx, fresh off of Ray.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jessica Biel, who is interchangeable with Jennifer Garner in my mind. And I don't even know his name, but I call him Bradley Cooper 1.0. Because he kind of has the same facial structure and like the same swagger about him.
Generic white guy.
He was a generic white guy that got blowed up trying to fight the Hulk. And he was in American Psycho as interchangeable white guy. In fact, that's probably his name in the credits in that movie.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Stealth. Not many people saw it, I'm guessing. But yeah, the concept of that was there's a computer-driven fighter jet that is put up against real-life fighter jets in a competition to see whether or not human fighter jet pilots are outmoded or not. And then the late game developments do in fact involve Jessica Biel falling behind enemy lines, I think in North Korea, and then generic white guy has to go down and save her with the help of the drone computer.
Yeah, and see, I'm sure that was probably the plot that was sold to make stuff.
They probably cannibalized a script for Top Gun 2 and said, "Hey, let's turn this into something else."
Yeah, see, that's my fear. Is they make crap. What I'm hoping is they actually hold true to the spirit of Top Gun. Like, I want those Rocky moments. I want the scene where Val Kilmer appears out of nowhere. Fat Val Kilmer in a fighter jet. Pops out of nowhere. Maybe Tom Cruise is on the run. He's locked on by some drone, and all of a sudden that drone explodes, and you cut to Fat Val Kilmer in the cockpit saying, "I told you, anywhere."
You can be my wingman anytime.
Yeah, if they have a scene like that, brilliant. It was worth the price of admission.
Tom Cruise gets on the satellite phone. Bullshit. Oh my god, that would be awesome.
No, yeah, all it takes is something minor like that. Like I said, all you need is the scene where Tom Cruise is on the verge of losing it, and he has to hit the brakes and let the guy fly by him. All he needs is the flyby of the tower on the way back from the critical mission, victory at the end. You need these sequences. You need those moments that it doesn't matter how cheesy it is. It still makes you want to get that tear of joy because you're just so happy to see it on film.
Yeah, I mean, look at Jurassic World. Jurassic World got more mileage than almost any movie I can think of, purely based on nostalgia and just like fan service.
Absolutely, and when that T-Rex appeared at the end, even though it was so predictable and so stupid, God. I still was jacked.
I mean, everybody was, clapping and everybody was cheering because the movie gave you what you wanted.
Yeah, and seeing Chris Pratt riding with raptors alongside him was cheesy as hell.
It's ridiculous.
Stupid. But you know what? That was pretty badass.
Yeah, I was happy with that. And Top Gun, I would expect the equivalent. Like, maybe not the exact same thing, but I would expect the equivalent to a shirtless homoerotic volleyball match.
Oh, you gotta have the volleyball match.
It has to be volleyball. It can't be like soccer or something to make it more international.
Well, that's probably what the route the studio will take, but something about that volleyball sequence is probably one of the most hilarious things ever put to film.
They'll make sure to cast like Lee Byung-hyun or something, get some Korean abs in there, get that Asia money.
Yeah. Yeah, there will most certainly be some interesting casting decisions in that regard.
International Top Gun.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that part, but all I can say is it doesn't take much to make a movie remind you why you thought the first one was great. And I think that's the reason they're making all these remakes, to be honest. There's people in their 30s who grew up with films like this, rant and rave about the greatest thing ever, and they want to show them to their kids, but the fact of the matter is a lot of them are dated.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, that was the point. Part of the reason I think Star Wars blew up so much, part of the reason Jurassic Park did so well, or Jurassic World, I should say. I mean, that's the reality of it. Is like, I remember growing up and our dad telling us about all these great movies he loved from his childhood, and you watch them when you're a kid and they suck because they're slow paced. They're all about atmosphere, and a lot of the time the political situation at the time. Like a lot of the time you just don't get it if you didn't grow up in that era. Things like Dog Day Afternoon, like, you watch it now and it's like, okay, great.
Yeah.
It doesn't strike you as much as it would at that time, So I think that these remakes, if they do it justice to the actual heart of it, that's really what we're looking for. That's what we want to be sated by. We want to watch something where we can say, yeah, that was the same feeling I got walking out of the theater, I got watching on VHS as a kid, that you're experiencing now, or future generations can experience now, without having to go back and watch the old stuff and realize maybe it's kind of lame and dated.
So, to wrap up, if you were to make like a wish list, like what would you say would be one or two things that you absolutely would be over the moon if they found their way into Top Gun 2?
Some of the lesser known pilots.
Oh.
Iceman needs to be in there. Fat Val Kilmer needs to be in there.
Oh, God, yeah.
But, I'd love to see Sundown, I'd love to see, like you said, Slider, some of these other guys, Merlin.
Yeah, Merlin would be good.
Hell, I mean, honestly...
that was Tim Robbins. So, I mean, Tim Robbins is in the business of doing favors. Like, he would be easy to get in there.
Yeah, and to be honest, if I were writing the script, I would have a sequence with Cougar.
Cougar, yeah.
Cougar I think it would be a great scene to have Maverick, riding his motorcycle over, and Cougar's got his wife and his kids, and he's happy on the farm, and, and they talk about mortality. They talk about, how he almost reached that pinnacle and he just couldn't hack it. I think that would be a great compelling sequence. That's the thing about Top Gun that people don't give it enough credit for. It really delved with, real issues that men who are faced with these alpha type positions have to work with. Athletes, corporate execs, like people who are in these positions where you need to be the man all nonstop throughout. Like it did kind of focus on those things and paid off, gave tribute to them. I mean, in a way that, people can relate to.
Yeah.
I thought that, that was a great part to it that people don't really focus on because it gets overshadowed by the romance. And the father issues kind of explains it all away and people just kind of abandon it all. But really, like, the point of emphasis in most of the movie is this guy's just kind of putting on his happy face throughout. Yeah. And trying to show that he's, just in control. But in reality, he's a mess.
No, I seem to recall there being kind of a throwaway line in there making mention of living life on the razor's edge.
Up there, we gotta push it. That's our job.
And that really does apply to a lot of the characters there in the Top Gun Academy, especially Maverick. And yeah, that was one thing that was really nice about that movie is that when Goose buys it, the movie does put on the brakes and does pay respect to that.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's too many instances, especially in modern films, where something like that will happen. Like a major character will get bumped off, or some horrible cataclysmic event will happen, but the movie just does not have the time, does not choose to give the time of day to it, where it just keeps on rolling. And there is a big chunk of screen time devoted purely to Maverick being distraught and not even knowing how to deal with what's being put in front of him.
No, like some of my favorite sequences actually are the points where he won't engage.
Yeah.
In particular, the first time when he goes up and he's just such a mess, he can't even participate. Because that's the thing. Like, I feel like in most films like that, especially in the 80s, like, he would have dominated the Top Gun competition. He would have dug deep, found a way to win it all, but no, he basically flunks out. I mean, he passes, I guess, technically at the end, but I mean, he really didn't achieve anything, anything that he was in line to. He couldn't hack it at the time.
What's really neat, I think, too, about that sequence is that it's made clear that even the instructors are trying. They're trying to uplift him. They aren't punishing him. They're actually kind of easing back and trying to get him to find his rhythm because he is useful. He is a fighter pilot.
And that's actually the part that I really liked the most, I think, was that's where you see, like, depth to Jester.
Yes.
Where it's like, actually, he's, you realize that, ultimately he's a teacher.
Yeah.
He comes across like this hard-ass dick, but in fact, like, this guy wants to see the best for his pilots, and in this sequence, he's actually trying to give him the bait him into it.
He's basically letting him lock onto him. But it's funny you should mention Jester, because if I were to pick one returning cast member that I need to see in a sequel, it's Michael Ironside.
Absolutely.
I need to see the grumpy Canadian.
Oh, he was so perfect. And, if possible, too, I don't even know if he's alive anymore, but the Admiral, I forget the actor's name at the moment, but fat bald guy with the cigars.
Man, the Mills Lane looking guy from Back to the Future.
Yeah, I would love to see him, too, but, I don't know if he's available. Yeah. Like I said, he may be dead.
Yeah, Father Time's a motherfucker. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, there are subtle things like that I think that if you throw that in there, that would really, be a nice welcome, acknowledgement of some of the great sequences of the first one.
Mm.
But really, I guess I'm just excited that for the first time you're seeing a sequel to a movie where you got the original actor on board with the producer, and they both kind of know that people like to have fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And movies now aren't as fun as they used to be. And hopefully Top Gun 2 can remedy that.
Jerry Bruckheimer is in the business of making money. I don't think there's a possibility that it'll be a bad movie. But I really hope that it does maintain the same tone and feel. I think that's most important.
Yeah, and like I said, they managed to do it with Creed. So
they really did. Creed is a fantastic film.
So they failed miserably with Die Hard. But Creed, nailed it, and I think that's going to... And like I said, Star Wars nailed it, Jurassic World nailed it. I think that they have an idea now of how to make these nostalgic movies in a way that, pays the homage, but at the same time progresses to a more modern situation to where a new audience can appreciate, the depth of the storyline. Because that's the point of storytelling, isn't it, in the first place? It's repurposing it in a way that the modern generation can relate to it in some way to pass on the same themes, pass on the same context, And really, I learned a lot. I attribute a lot of my life success to Top Gun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Top Gun was a big deal. I knew plot points to Top Gun a decade before I saw it. I always knew it as the film where Goose dies. I didn't know who Goose was. I didn't know the context. I just knew someone named Goose dies, and it's bad.
Oh, yeah. And, I'd be lying if there weren't moments where I had my own Maverick moments as well.
I feel the need.
Yeah, feel the need for speed.
Yeah, most of them involve me being a douche with my guy friends, but yes.
Checking your watch and flexing at the same time.
Or pumping my fist as a jet plane takes off.
or standing way too close to dudes and clacking your teeth together.
And wearing a white suit in public and drinking domestic beer.
Dang, I haven't done that one.
Well, anyway, I think we've covered just about everything you can from one leaked photo of Jerry Bruckheimer and Tom Cruise. This has been Matt Hart and Trevor Hart for the Hapa Bro-Cast on the Salute to Arrogance. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
But now I'm suddenly turning into a black basketball player. She wore taffeta. I'm typing as a gay basketball player from the 60s. No, I like short shorts. They are revealing, but they're comfortable. It helps me jump.